Hey everyone, welcome to another responsive design video. This is the first video in a series of several that are going to step through building a fully responsive template. In this video, we're just going to start with the HTML so we can get a good basis for how we're going to style it. The way that I'm going to approach this is I'm going to start with a two-column layout and that's what we're going to plan for. We're building with a mobile first perspective. And what that means is we're going to design the page to look good on a mobile device, on the smallest devices. And then we're going to check out some breakpoints and see where it looks, how it looks good at larger sizes. My intention is to make it a one-column web page for mobile. And then for a mid-size breakpoint, which would be tablets and such, I'm going to make it a one column, potentially two column, with a little bit of different changes. And then at full size, it will be a multi-column, two-column web page at the widest sizes. So let's get started building that HTML. To start with, I'm going to make a grid container. It's going to contain the entire web page. As you know, whenever you work with CSS Grid, it's a system that works with a container and then children of that container. You display grid on the container, and then all the children get arranged based on how you set the values for the container. So I'm going to make a div, and call it class grid container. And then I'm going to put a comment at the end of it so we know what that closing div is. Inside of here, what I'm going to have is my header, my nav, my two columns, and my footer. And then in between the nav and the two columns, I'm going to put a feature section. So I'll get my header, as we usually do. Put an H1 in there for now. You know what? No, I'm going to have a logo header image in here, and I'm not going to use an H1. So I'll go image, source, and then I'm going to take a look in my folders and see. I've got several images created right now that are going to be set up for responsive images. If we look at my directory here, I've got several logos, pretty fancy logo I made. It says logo type inside of a circle. I'm going to start with just putting a logo in there that's 250 pixels. I'm going to use this logo 251. And then later on, when we start talking about responsive images in this series, I'm going to come back and change it so that it uses source set. But for now, I'm just going to go image source, and it's called logo 250, and it's a PNG. And make sure we get the alt tag, alt attribute. There we go. That's my header so far. I'm going to get a nav. Just like always, I'm going to go nav ULLI. My intention is to flex the nav so that depending on the width, either it's going to be horizontal and spaced or it's going to be vertical. I don't have a URL to anything yet, so I'm just putting in some placeholder there. and some placeholder text, and I will copy this and paste it 3 more times, as we usually do for our templates. So you can modify that nav however you want, depending on how many pages you have. This is just how we're going to start out. As I said, below the nav, I want to have a feature section. I'm going to use the section tag and give it class feature. In here, the way I want it to be set up is I want it to have 2 things. I want it to have an image with a caption below it, and then I want it to have a text section that'll either sit to the right of it or sit below, depending on the size of the screen and the orientation. It's going to start by sitting below. So it's going to have a figure with fig caption and image, and then it's going to have a div right down below it that's going to have an H2 and a paragraph. Figure, image, source equals, and this is going to be a responsive image at some point, but for now, I'm just going to throw an image in there. I've got some more images in here. Oh, they're in a different directory. I think I actually accidentally put them in one of these. There we go. I've got reflect 250 through full size. I'm going to copy these. I'm in the correct directory, otherwise it's not going to work. And I'm just going to throw reflect 250 in there to start. Double check it and make sure. It is called reflect 250 px.jpg. There we go. And as I said, I'm just going to start out with the 250 pixel image, and then in a later video, we're going to use source set and make it responsive and serve larger images at larger sizes, smaller images at smaller sizes. Go. And below the image, inside of there, I'm going to make a fig caption. Below the figure, I'm going to have a div, and I'm going to call it feature text. I said that I wanted to have an H2 in there. And a paragraph. You get some lorem ipsum text here. I don't need all of it. I'm just going to get the first 2 sentences. Paste it in. There, that's good. So this is my feature. It's a section. It's got a figure with an image and a fig caption. It's got a div called class feature text with an H2 and a paragraph. These are going to be stacked vertically by default. On wider screens, we're going to have them go side by side. But as a default, remember, we are designing mobile first, so they're going to be stacked vertically. Below the features section is where I'm going to have my 2 columns. And I'm going to do that using main. I'm going to call it main class, main content. And then I'm going to use an aside. I'm just going to call it side content for now, though that's not a great class name. You can call it something else. And then down below them, I'm going to have a footer. I'll fill those with content in a second. And I'm just going to put a paragraph in there that says footer stuff will go here. And later on, I could put a full footer in there as needed. But for now, it's just this is a template and this is placeholder text. So the main content is going to have a article. And like we always seem to do, I'm going to have an H2 at the top of the article. I'm going to give it a paragraph. Grab some of that lorem text. I'm just going to grab 3 paragraphs of this. And I'll put opening and closing tags where they need to go. I've got 3 paragraphs. And then below the second paragraph, I'm going to put in a block quote. And take the first sentence of lorem ipsum and throw it in the block quote. Here we go. And I'm just going to copy all this stuff and put in the sidebar. And when I do it in the sidebar, I'm going to remove the block quote and I'm going to put an image on top of it. So sidebar is going to get an article. We get all of that content in H2, a paragraph, take out the block quote, and then 2 more paragraphs. And then below the H2, figure with a fig caption and image. I'm just going to copy this stuff from the feature because why not? It's going to be the same stuff, but I'm going to change it later. This is just placeholder for now. So I'm copying my figure from the feature and pasting it in the sidebar. All right, let's take a look at this in the browser. It's not going to look like much. As it's not styled yet, it doesn't really look like much. It looks like I've got a missing closing tag here, so I've got an error. I'll have to fix that. But here's going to be my header with the logo image in it. Here is my nav with my 4 links. Here's my feature where I've got my figure with a fig caption, my H2, and should be a paragraph, but I'm missing a closing tag, so we'll find that error and fix it. I've got my main content here with an H2 3 paragraphs and my block quote, which is not styled yet. And then I've got my side with my H2, my figure with fig caption, and my 3 paragraphs, and then my footer down there. So when I look at this in the on mobile size, maybe I'll go down to choose iPhone 12 Pro. This is kind of what it's going to look like. Now, this isn't responsive yet. There's nothing done with the typography yet. There's nothing done with responsive images yet. There's nothing done with Flexbox or Grid or any of that. This is just my base template. But this is roughly what it's going to look like. It's going to look a lot nicer when I style it, but that's kind of what it'll look like. When we go up to larger breakpoints, say like the iPad Air, I'm going to have the navigation be horizontal, the image will get wider, and then the text will sit side by side instead of being vertical. And then I'm going to have some other things happen throughout. And then we'll take a look later. We'll have it multi-column when we go up to full size. At full size, these 2 columns will sit side by side. All right, let's fix that problem before I say goodbye. Let's go to the feature, because that's where the problem arose. Yep, here it is. So my feature heading opens with an H2. The closing H2 did not have the escape. There we go. Fix it. Take a look in the browser, make sure it looks good. And there we go. Now our HTML is set up the way we want it for our fully responsive website. So quickly to review. I've got my div, which is called grid container. It opens here. It closes all the way down below everything at the bottom. I have my header with my logo image. I've got my nav with a UL, a series of LIs, each of them with links inside of them, as always. I've got my section called class feature. It's got a figure with an image and a fig caption. It's got a div class feature text with an H2 and a paragraph. It's got a main called class main content with an article, an H2, and 3 paragraphs. In between the first and second paragraph, I have a block quote. I've got my aside called side content. I've got to call it class. That would have been a bad error. Class side content with an article, an H2, a figure with an image and a fig caption, and a series of paragraphs. And then my footer down at the bottom. All right, make sure that you get this HTML written perfectly before you go on to the next video. In the next video, we're going to do a little bit of styling.